各位同事請好唔好坐返埋位
Members, please be seated. We are getting started with the second segment of the meeting. Dr. Kenneth Chen next, please. Thank you, Chairman. Chairman, this is a very important subject that we are debating tonight. There is a phenomenon in our society that the population is aging and how we should deal with it. I don't subscribe to the idea that we are chatting away here. If a electrical member who is an executive member would like to speed things up, there can be many ways. It may be good for her to hurry members along, but for members who haven't been involved in this debate or who haven't really had any chance of listening to the arguments at the Welfare Services Panel for the deputations, I think she should respect them. Now, many of the deputations, the senior citizens, they come here. They don't really just sit here waiting for the money. Those in the gallery, a lot of them are senior citizens. They are observing our every move. For those who really want just efficiency, should think twice about this. There are some young civil servants who are observing our every single move. Now, is this? I mean, we can see what the audience cannot see. There are so many civil servants who are observing our every move. Professor Lau Siu Kai once said that the OALA is in line with public expectations. Ms. Sit Ho quoted a research findings. I'm also involved in research. I think we have to respect the data. The data were released in July this year. They included opinion polls on the streets and so on. On the day the research findings were released, I looked at the findings in great detail and also heard the explanation of the scholars. Now, what I'm going to quote would be very important. I'm not saying this to the Secretary. I'm telling members, fellow members, that don't worry. Some said that if you do not get this through, people will blame us. But don't worry, fret not. The figures, the findings show us that there is a groundswell of support for universal pension scheme, and there is also a lot of opinions that hold different views regarding this means test. Now, this is what the findings said. Now, regarding the OALA, for those who favor a means test, if the sample size is 100%, then 77% would say no to this means test. Now, who can represent the middle class? Now, are you in a position to represent the middle class? Now, the beauty of this survey is that there is a distinction of the social strata. For the upper or middle strata of the community, 74% said no means test, say no to means test. 64% of the upper strata said no to the means test. Now, these are public opinions in early July, when people started hearing about this subject. They expressed all these opinions. Now, in terms of universal pension scheme, what is the public opinion like? Is it really causing a resentment on the part of the middle class? The answer is no. Do people polled feel that there should be a retirement, universal retirement scheme during the tenure of C.Y. Leung? 87 of the middle strata agree. 76% of the middle and upper strata agree or very much agree with this proposition. So we are debating this OALA today, and we have also been talking about the creation of a universal pension scheme. I think that there is a groundswell of support for that, according to the opinion surveys. And during our election campaigns, we have already explained our position to the electorate. So I don't think anybody can threaten the electoral members. Maybe the chairman can be threatened just by a few phone calls. But I've tried to point out the data and the findings. Mr. Chen. I'd like to respond to Mr. Wu that the FTU was urging for the removal of the means test. Now, the FTU has always been of the view that for those who are above the age of 70 should be subject to means test. Now, if they have the asset, now some of the senior citizens did pay tax when they were younger. When they hit 70, can we be nicer to them? Can we reward them for their young contribution in younger days? The secretary mentioned the OALA. I don't think he has conducted a thorough evaluation of the situation. It seems to me that the secretary seems to be very proud of what he's doing, and he's trying to improve the lot of the 400,000 people, and he's holding LegCo responsible for not endorsing the OALA. I must emphasize that the Old Age Living Allowance is part of the Chief Executive's manifesto, and the Secretary is trying to help the Chief Executive realize this proposal. It was pushed with undue haste. We were given about a week. We have so many panel meetings. We have the council meetings on Wednesday, and we have House Committee and Finance Committee on Fridays. And we only given very limited time to discharge our function of discussing this in detail. So I hope that the Secretary will offer us an apology because of this undue haste. We were kept in the conference rooms all week long. Also, if the OALA is implemented, then there is a blurred distinction between respecting the elderly and also poverty alleviation. Now, the OAA is $1,090. Those between 65 and 69, I mean, it seems that we are beginning to alleviate their poverty without any respect for them. I think there is a very big problem with the logic here. Now, after the OALA has been implemented, you have the threshold of $186,000, below which they will be entitled to $2,200. But for CSSA, one would get $2,800 if one has $30,000 in asset. Now, there are problems I have problem getting my head around these $30,000 and $180,000 in terms of asset for the two different schemes. Do you have an intention to increase the allowance under the CSSA as well? Secretary, right? A token of gratitude and also poverty alleviation. Between 65 and 69, one has to make declaration for OAA or the fruit money. Now that's really financial needs. We require declaration because previously the age threshold was 70. Now it has come down to 65. Now, some senior citizens would like to get some allowance. We granted that subject to declaration. This has remained unchanged. If one has the need to get the fruit money, then this will become the allowance in future. Well, they have to be subject to means test, even if this is a token of gratitude. Can't you do away with the means test? Well, above 70, the fruit money will not be subject to any means test. So it is a token of gratitude for those beyond 70, but not so much for anybody below that. Right? For those above 70, it is a token of gratitude. For 65 and 69, we have to look at the financial needs. That's why we need a means test. We need the declaration. The logic is very simple. Mr. Yu Siwing. Chairman, I think this scheme is a step in the right direction. At least a lot of the poor senior citizens would be assisted. I mean, it has received favorable feedback. From my constituency, they also in favor of this. The DAB collected some data which show positive feedback, but it seems to me that things are really launched with undue haste, like the asset limit and so on. But at least the government has taken a step forward. I would support the scheme, but I hope that the administration would get on with the work of the Poverty Commission and come up with a timetable to assuage members' concerns. Now, we have taken the first step forward. What about the next step? It doesn't seem to me to be clear in this regard, and I hope that the government would come up with something. Secretary, thank you very much, Mr. Yu. I go along with you that this is a significant first step, and then at the Poverty Commission, we will look at all the various things, retirement protection, poverty line, and so on. All these will be addressed. Mr. Yu, you still have time. Right, Chairman, what about timetable? Can the administration come up with a timetable? Secretary, indeed, the schedule, the timeline, the priority, and so on, all these will be laid down for the members' consideration. Mr. Gary Fan. Chairman, I don't think I subscribe to the way in which you handle the meeting. Mrs. Regina Ip took up the time and raised the question that they could have been handled by Mr. Michael Teen's motion. Chairman, I've got two questions. The Welfare Services Panel had two meetings with 80 deputations joining us who are concerned about the elderly poverty. The administration normally would collect and collate all the views. I've listened to what they have to say, all the arguments for and against. I sat through the entire meeting for the first time. My observation is that 85 to 90% of them are against the means test, and they hope that there should be a universal retirement protection scheme to address the elderly poverty problem. Now, the administration, I haven't seen anything done by the administration to modify the scheme in the light of the views that you have heard. Now, the Welfare Services Panel have had two special meetings. We spent all this time inviting all these deputations and presented all these papers. What for? Is it true that you're merely going through the motion with all these consultations? We criticize the Hong Kong administration for being like the mainland, and you are ignoring the due process in the meetings, and you're not really following all the due procedures. Secretary, you said that this OALA is focusing the resources on those who are in genuine need. Some of my fellow colleagues cited other surveys. That Oxfam back in 2010 conducted a survey that showed that 160,000 people or senior citizens in Hong Kong are eligible for CSSA, but they don't really want to be subject to means test, and they gave up on the CSSA. There are 200,000 between 65 and 69 who have to be subject to means test before they would be entitled to the fruit money. But the number of applications is actually 1/3 or less than 80,000. Now, you said that the resources should be focused on those who are in need, and this is the way to address the elderly poverty. So I think if this is the case, the problem should have been addressed, and you should have been able to help the elderly people who are in poverty. But why is it that 1 in 3 senior citizens are living in poverty? How can you resolve the problem with a proposal like this? To address the problem, I think you have to review the CSSA level. You have to relax the means test. You have to do away with the bad boy declaration. You have to allow those senior citizens who are living with their kids to make the application. And that is the right way to go. I mean, with this scheme, it is more like handouts, and you are really nowhere near resolving the elderly poverty problem. Secretary. Right, Chairman, the public hearings are important because this is a two-way street. We can engage in a dialogue, and through this process, the administration can explain its position. And why do we have to draw a line somewhere with poverty alleviation? Why do we need to have objective criteria to evaluate the applications? We all appreciate the aspirations for universal pension scheme. It's not as if the government is shying away from this particular problem. We do have a commission, a task force, which will look at the retirement protection and social security, and we are moving forward. But do let us have some room. We've only just started. We've started for about 100 days. Now, with this $6.2 billion investment, it is no small sum. Now, the Oxfam survey showed that hundreds of thousands of senior citizens are not able to get the fruit money. This is precisely there to fill this gap. Now, this $6.2 billion will help the 400,000 people, Mr. Fan. But this $186,000 threshold is too low. Mr. Michael Tin. Chairman, thank you. I'm sure members are fully aware that this OALA will not have any retrospective effect. If we endorse this scheme, $290,000, we get the allowance for October for $2,200. If we do not endorse this, if we delay this to November, they will stand to lose $2,500. If delay another month, another $2,500 forgone. We can discuss this ad infinitum if we use the senior citizens' welfare as the political chip. Is not really wise. If the senior citizens lose their allowance, the blame will be laid on the government, and there is no commitment on our part. I'm sure we all are aware that the government will not will not allow any precedent of retrospectivity. If we allow this precedent, then all new policies would allow retrospectivity without any criteria, 1 month, 2 months, 6 months. And are we sparing any thoughts for the senior citizens who are waiting? Now, we talk about retrospectivity. I think this is an excuse used to object to this. Some cited civil servants pay rise in relation to retrospectivity. I'm not sure whether they are trying to deceive the members of the public. The civil servants will get a pay rise on the 1st of April. If there is a delay. There is retrospectivity. I mean, it would be difficult to decide on the level. I mean, they have to start on the day it is decided.
The income and asset declaration requirement of the OALA, which is the center of the controversy in the minds of the opposing members. They think that all eligible elderly people should enjoy the OALA allowance, whereas the purpose of the means test is to focus our resources on those in genuine need. We won't be able to reach consensus. The New People's Party supports the income and asset declaration on this basis. Now, on a radio program, I discussed with Mr. Lee Cheuk-yen on whether there should be an income and asset declaration requirement. On 2 occasions, 100% of the people who phoned the program supported the means test. They were elderly people from all walks of life. They were from the middle class and also CSSA recipients. Well, some quoted that close to 70 or 80% of the respondents in the survey opposed the means test. But the spirit of Hong Kong, which we're proud of, is that we should focus our resources on those in need. Resources we should not have some sort of co-op society. And some members questioned why the limit is set at 186,000. I don't wish to explain on behalf of the administration, but what I want to say is, no matter where the limit is set, some will definitely propose to increase the limit in order to gain some points. However, to set the limit at $186,000 will enable 400,000 senior citizens to benefit from the proposal. Now, if the limit is raised, then we should ask an allowance of $3,500 be given so that another 100,000 elderly people may benefit from it. I hope members could do some soul searching and support this proposal so that the elderly people can get the $2,200 as soon as possible. I have no question for the Secretary. Thank you. Next, Mr. K.K. Fong. Thank you, Chairman. Well, there are 2 ways to give money to the elderly. One by means of poverty alleviation. The other is a token of respect. Over 60% of CSSA recipients are elderly. They're subject to an asset limit of $30,000. And I'm talking about elderly people aged 70 or above. They'll be exempted from the means test for the OAA. Now, if you say that this is a token of respect, or what we call the universal retirement protection, then this is not a poverty alleviation measure. Of course, we suggest different figures. Now, poverty alleviation will attract problems like selectivity and also labeling effects, and some senior citizens may be inadvertently caught by the law because they don't understand the proposal. Now, in 2003, under Siege Tong's leadership, the CPU conducted studies, and after 9 years, no paper has ever been released on retirement protection. C.Y. Leung, in his election manifesto, said that he's ready to tackle the, not the universal retirement protection, but at least the fruit money. But fruit money is not universal retirement protection. If you suggest fruit money or the OAA, this is a token of gesture. This is not poverty alleviation. So, Chairman, now if you talk about poverty alleviation, for a CSSA elderly recipient, the asset limit is $33,000, and the allowance amount is $3,500. So if you're trying to help the elderly poor, CSSA elderly recipients are poorer than the elderly people who have assets below 186,000 as proposed now. So you should do both in parallel. But if you say, on the contrary, that this is a gesture of respect for the elderly, then you should do away with the means test. You should rather introduce an enhanced old age allowance as a token of respect. Instead, you have mixed the two things up, and that's why it has sparked so much controversy. I have 3 questions for the Secretary, so perhaps I'll put the 3 questions in one go for him to give me an answer. Now, C.Y. Leung says he will tackle retirement protection. So can he give an undertaking that a result can be seen during his term? Not about study, but a result or an outcome. Second, now, this OALA will be shouldered by solely by the administration. Eventually, the burden will be too great for the government, whereas under the Universal Retirement Protection Scheme with tripartite contribution, part of it will be shouldered by the working population. And the government will only show the 40%. And also, during the public hearing, is it that over 90% actually supported your proposal? And what was your response? I'd like the Secretary to answer my 3 questions. Secretary, thank you, Mr. Fung, for the questions. Well, the Chief Executive says very clearly in the manifesto that short, medium, and long-term measures will be introduced to study the retirement protection. And I emphasize that under the Poverty Commission, a subcommittee will be set up to tackle 2 things, social security as well as retirement protection. And we'll definitely follow up on these matters. Next, I'd like to say that this OALA is a poverty alleviation measure. It's not a token of respect for the elderly. We should not be confused. Would you like to give a conclusion? Now, this public hearing, as I said, is a two-way platform for them to express their views, as well as for the administration to explain the positions and clarify any misunderstanding. Dr. Lim Tai Fai. Thank you, Chairman. Chairman, respect and care for the elderly is what a government should do. Our 7 million population should also chip in, if possible. So the Old Age Living Allowance is a good policy. We should support it. However, throughout the process, Mr. Zhang, Secretary, you have spoiled it. Not only have you sparked controversy, you have caused tension between the executive and the legislature. And actually, the obstacle is you. You got in the way of the elderly people getting the allowance as soon as possible. Secretary, you have been Director of Bureau for many years. You should understand that in promoting a policy, you should reason and convince others. You should convince others with reasons. And this is how harmony can be maintained in the society. This is how the society will have confidence in the government. However, in this incident, it revealed how careless you have been. Now, let me be frank. You have been unreasonable. You have not been abiding by any code of ethics. Now, we're not opposing care for the elderly. We're not stopping the government from caring for the elderly. We just think that your policy is not good enough, and as a result, many elderly people in financial needs may not be able to benefit from your scheme. And that's why we have made different suggestions, including raising the income and asset limits, and whether exemption can be given to a certain age group of the elderly. But you paid no heed to our suggestions. We all cared about our elderly, but you put us on the spot. You said that approval should be given as soon as possible, or else the senior citizens would receive 1 month's allowance less. And you said that you won't be able to account to the public, and so on and so forth. Well, you are being very unethical. Even if the proposal is approved, no one will be happy. I really disapprove this. You often talked about caring for the elderly as a threat. Not every elderly understand what our members have been striving for. You, however, put all of us on the spot. And in order to ease our minds, you even said that elderly people could transfer their assets. It's really unacceptable in a civil society. It will also create a bad president. So you should be careful about your words. Secretary, today you put all our members on the spot. We're placed between the rock and a hard place. Well, if we support your proposal, whether we support your proposal or not, we are in a difficult position. We should not adopt this kind of thinking. I'm speaking from the bottom of my heart. We should not adopt this kind of logic. So, Secretary, you keep saying that you listen to views, you listen to public's views, and it's really peculiar. We have 70 national members. We have 5 members from the FCDC2, and we have elected members. So aren't their views expressed on behalf of the public as well? Members, now housekeeping matters. Now, first round we have just finished. 6 members have pressed the buttons for a second round. So if we stick to the 5-minute speaking limit, then each we'll use 30 minutes, since we still have 16 motions to deal with. 14 motions to deal with, and it will take us at least 40 minutes. So 30 plus 40 will take us to 70 minutes. And we still have 15 minutes to go through the voting process if there are no other businesses. And as usual practice, I can extend the meeting by 15 minutes. So at most, we have just an hour and a half left. So if we want to approve this proposal, or at least put this proposal to a vote tonight, please keep watch of the time. Let's bear this in mind. Dr. Fernando Zhang, second round, 5 minutes. Thank you, Chairman. Dr. Lam Tai Fai, fabulous remarks or criticisms. Well, the government is just driving a wedge. This is a very unscrupulous practice. I urge members to support my motion because even Mr. Abraham Shek and Dr. Lam Tai Fai had criticized the administration for causing tension between elderly of different age groups and elderly having different amounts of assets. You talked about the financial burden in the future, and you also caused tension between the Legislative Council and the elderly. You're actually threatening us. I can only say that it's despicable. Well, this policy or this proposal involves billions of dollars to assist the elderly. Why have we come to this stage? Well, you kept on saying that you have explained to the Labour Party. You said that the means test is necessary, and you said nothing else. We talked about the division causing a divide. You did not respond to that. And we talked about the raising the income and assets limit and so on and so forth. You hadn't budged at all. Haven't spoken over and over again, and having received so many deputations, and we have 70 members in this council from GC and FC. Apart from members who, or except members who are ExCo members, other members also suggest improvements to the proposal. However, you made no change to the proposal. You manipulated public opinion to impose pressure, to exert pressure on us. Well, the New People's Party said that it is the practice of the administration that there wouldn't be any retrospectivity. But, well, let's do your homework. This is what Mrs. Carrie Lam said. According to this media report, the Chief Secretary for Administration, Mrs. Carrie Lam, said that the administration was studying into the OALA allowance and would consider making the retrospective effective date the 1st of July. Well, you can dig up this piece of article on the web. You can just key in retrospective effective date of OALA, and you can see what CS had said. She herself said that it could be the 1st of July. So is there no fiscal discipline at all? You said that it must be the 1st of October, and yet she said it could be 1st of July. So who is suggesting fiscal discipline? Who is putting the LegCo on the spot? Different political parties have different suggestions. We also had a proposal. We hope that retirement protection is a right, not a privilege. We hope that all elderly people in Hong Kong should enjoy retirement protection. There should be a retirement protection to meet their basic needs. Well, Dr. Cheung, are you going to ask questions, or are you going to give a 5-minute speech? You should allow time for Secretary to answer your question. Chairman, I want to ask him. All right, you said it's poverty alleviation. Well, we have CSSA for poverty alleviation, and CSSA is applied on a household basis. For this one, this is poverty alleviation again, but it's only on the basis of each elderly applicant. And children's contribution doesn't count as income. And then a declaration will have to be made in the CSSA declaration. to take out any contribution from children. Why is it that for poorer elderly people you're being very mean, but not so for the elderly people with better means?
This is what the the strength of this scheme. It's because it's lenient. Albert Chan, Mr. Secretary. I think in public policy, anyone with a bit of common sense, if they look at your proposed OASL, they would really, shake their head in despair, because many of the criteria you've laid down are irrational. When you explain to members that this is a measure to alleviate poverty, then you should have a poverty line. For those who have the means and assets, you shouldn't give it to them. If you start from on the basis of poverty alleviation. And very often when we ask questions about the means test, you ask the director to answer the question. But the director's answer has been very vague. You're creating traps for the senior citizens. If the senior citizen thinks that something has commemorative value, they don't have to declare. When the Fire Street was being redeveloped, in one of the blocks to be developed, the husband gave that whole block away to his wife as in commemoration of their marriage. A whole block of building. You look at Queen Elizabeth; she has such a lot of jewelry with commemorative value. If you say that these don't need to be declared, stocks can also have commemorative value. Anything can have a commemorative value. I think your response is really frightening. I gave the example of a painting by the master Zhang Daijin, which is a question raised by a senior citizen. And another question about the joint account, and again here you are creating a trap. The children can, lure their parents to say, if you declare that you have less than $160,000, you can receive the additional $1,000 odd, and then they agree. And then in future, if there are any dispute regarding what is in the joint account, the senior citizen, just because they want to collect the extra $1,000 odd, they may lose whatever is in that joint account. Many of your proposals not mature or well thought out. As I said, this is a project to boost CY Leung's popularity. In order to implement his manifesto, he said in the manifesto is gone against all the normal procedure and has vacated the right mindset and has adopted the discipline when formulating public policy. Just for the sake of his own popularity, you're all being led by the nose. I think all EXCO members should resign collectively. You are now creating traps for all the senior citizens. You are now setting a bad precedent as far as the mode of governance for the Hong government is concerned. We are now having Hong Kong communists ruling Hong Kong. Are you creating such a bad precedent? If public policy is formulated in this manner in future, Hong Kong will go under. How can the policies be so immature, so illogical, and so lacking in principle? How can we still believe in you? This is really frightening. You talk about the means test. It could be so ridiculous and it's not based on any principle. You say depending on the commemorative value. That's what the director said. If I believe that something has a commemorative value, I don't need to declare. This is what you've said, Mr. Director. I'll give you some time to respond. Director, Chairman, what I said earlier is that under the present declaration system, this has been implemented for quite some time. According to our documents, according to the documents, the assets of 70% of the senior citizens has not exceeded half of the threshold. So the system can look after the needs of the senior citizens at the grassroots level. Of course, there are some extreme cases, But according to our previous experience, these are not common phenomena. What about this extreme scenario? Should they be reported or not? You talk about community value. Let's say I have a diamond, a 3-carat diamond. Should I declare that? If in the case in question, you mentioned a painting or certain objects, and I was responding to that question. I'm making my response in the light of that question. But our basic principles and what are covered and what are not, we have detailed guidelines. And when we implement the scheme, we will clearly promote those guidelines. Mr. Ma Fung Kwok. Thank you. I had not intended to speak originally because I wanted to see this proposal approved as soon as possible. But now it would appear that before 11, we will not be able to do that. So I may as well try to say something. On the one hand, I fully agree and support the government's decision. Using limited resources and spending them on those senior citizens who are the most needy is it reflects the responsible attitude of the government. We need to help tackle poverty, help those people who are not on CSSA but who have financial needs. When you implement any system, of course, any system has room for improvement. Since Mr. C.Y. Leung, during the course of his election campaign, had prepared his manifesto, and after he became elected, he proposed certain ideas which were contained in his manifesto, that I think we should support them. Of course, there's room for improvement for such policies, but that would take time. I don't believe there's any system that can be perfect the moment it is launched. But I have not spoken earlier because I would like to listen to our colleagues. But having heard members so far, I have not yet heard any argument that could convince me that I should give up my support for the government's proposal. Many of the reasons put forward, many of the arguments, if we were to resolve all those problems, then we may need to take a year or two or even longer to discuss before we can come up with such a system. But the proposal put forward by the administration shows that the government is very anxious to help the senior citizens. While we can't help everyone, we are able to help a considerable number of people. While we cannot help them resolve all of the problems, we can at least help them resolve some of the problems. Such a proposal, one which can be afforded by the community. So I see no reason why we should stop this proposal or postpone this implementation. I don't think passing the proposal is the end of the story. Many of the good ideas suggested by members and by the members of the community, including the amount of the allowance, the limit of the assets, and age requirements for declaration, all these could be further refined or adjusted in the light of further discussion by the entire community, so that they could be perfected. I think we can do that step by step. I only need the government to give an undertaking that this is not the end of the whole project, but rather there is room for further improvements. If that's the case, I'll be satisfied and I'll be prepared to support the government's proposal. I hope the Secretary can respond to my question. Secretary, could you give that undertaking? Thank you, Mr. Ma. I will definitely. Well, we have a task group under the Poverty Commission to review the progress of the scheme, and 1 year later we will come back to LegCo for to present a full report. If there's any room for improvement, we'll certainly do that. Mr. Cheung Kwok Chi, I'd like to go back to the minutes of the meetings of this council of the last term. We didn't have enough time to discuss this earlier. In para 22 of the minutes, which the Secretary quoted, he said that both Lee Cheuk Yen and Chairman made the same point. And when I read the second part of the paragraph, Mr. Tam Yu Chung said that similar to the higher OAO, and that there shouldn't be any means test, and the and the scheme, the ceiling for the new scheme should be more lenient than the one for the higher old age allowance. But I think many of our colleagues, and including the secretary as well, have changed the position. If you've heard what we said that day, you wouldn't have said it at 3,000, and you wouldn't have set the date on July the 1st, because after a few months the people's opinion have changed, and that is why now when we discuss whether or not when we suggest that there shouldn't be any means test and everybody should be eligible over the age of 65, and there should be a migration towards comprehensive retirement protection. Dr. Chen Ka-lok referred to the study conducted by the Polytechnic University, which were promulgated at the end of July. But after we've had a meeting in mid-July, things have changed. If you stick entirely to the minutes of the meeting, that doesn't really help. You haven't asked my question, why it should be $2,200. If you want to double the old age allowance, it should be 2,000 something and less than 2,100. For CSSA, the amount is $3,370. So I hope the secretary could tell us how you arrive at the proposed amount of $2,200. What was the rationale behind that decision, so that we know why it's not 2,180, why it's not 2,500 or 3,000 or even more. Well, this is very important. Otherwise, the next time you put forward a different proposal and you just propose any figures out of your personal whim, Secretary, I think the answer can be found in paragraph 4. That is, the CE promised in his manifesto that for needy elderly citizens, after a simple declaration, he will provide double the amount of allowance, namely $2,200. Secretary, you are now relying on what one single person said. You should help. You're helping the CE to. Can you help the CE explain the rationale to us? I think the rationale is that in between the OAA and CSSA, we want to provide a new subsidy. What purpose do you want to achieve by giving $2,100? It's not just putting the two together and divided by 2. Well, it is true that it's in Mr. Leung's manifesto. Secondly, this is something to subsidize his subsistence. If he has problem with subsistence, he should apply for CSSA. Secretary, you might have not attended a seminar on comprehensive retirement protection. On that day, Mr. Ho Wing Him, who helped Mr. C.Y. Leung during his election campaign in March, he was the person who helped him draft the manifesto. On that day, he admitted that the figure he suggested was arbitrary. If you deal with things in this manner, and over the years you've been in charge of the welfare portfolio, you did not, play the role of the gatekeeper, and you cannot explain to me why it's set at 2,200, and I don't think we'll be able to believe any figure that you will propose to us in the future. Well, the $2,200 is not a rigid figure, but you must have a basis. I'm not talking about tomorrow. I'm saying today you're proposing the amount of 2,200. Well, it's roughly about double the OAA amount. Any other questions? Chairman. I would like to have a rational discussion, but with answers like that, I can only laugh. Mr. Leung Yu-chung. As a candidate, after a candidate has become elected, when he wants to honor what he said in his manifesto, of course that we understand. But as a CE, after he's proposed his manifesto and after his election, should he stay rigidly to what he is contained in his manifesto without looking at what are the genuine needs of the community? The secretaries kept quoting what the CE has said. Does it mean that what the CE said is tantamount to the Bible and that is so sacrosanct that it cannot be changed, and that it should be followed blindly? and that we should, and that you wouldn't rationally and objectively look at the situation, analyze the proposal, and see whether or not it could be fine-tuned. Like you kept reiterating that this is a poverty alleviation measure. If that's the case, we are looking at how we can resolve the problem of poverty. Many of us questioned whether $2,200 can help alleviate poverty, but you've not answered that question. You kept going around in circle and say it's double the amount of the OAA, and this is what CY Leung had said in its manifesto. What kind of criterion is this? We're not talking. This is not a criterion. This is not standard. You have to set the amount according based on the needs. Mr. Cheung kept asking what was the objective criteria on the basis of which you would arrive at this figure. You couldn't answer the question. Other than another question I'd like to ask is this. You emphasize that this is the $6.2 billion will become recurring expenditure. It's $6.2 billion this year. It will steadily increase in future. It's part of government's recurring expenditure. Where does the government money come from? It comes from the general revenue. And civil servants kept telling us that the size of the pie is fixed. If you take more out of the pie here, then less could be put elsewhere. So I'd like to ask, after you've used such additional resources, will it have any impact on other government expenditures? Can you guarantee that in future, because of this additional expenditure arising from this proposal, it will not adversely affect government expenditure in other areas, and that there wouldn't be any increase in taxation? The first question is still about the $2,200 as a starting point. Of course, the manifesto mentioned 2,200, and it's an appropriate amount. Right now, the OA is $1,090. If you're on CSSA, if you're a single person, it's $2,820. So $2,200 is not low. It may not fully satisfy his subsistence need, but at least it can provide relief and subsidize part of his subsistence. We think it's a good starting point, and it's also prudent from financial management's point of view. And secondly, you asked whether the proposal, the scheme, if implemented, will have impact on resources for other purposes. Every year, if we approve this proposal, government will have to commit $6.2 billion every year. And it's about, it would mean a 14% increase in our social welfare expenditure. Right now, it's $44.2 billion. $6.2 billion is about 14% of that. And this shows government is attaching importance. Government's commitment to look after the elderly is very important. Will it affect other government expenditure? If the new, it would mean that most of the new resources will be spent on this item. Every year we have a new resource allocation exercise. Most of the additional resources will come to this item, which shows that the government is attaching a lot of importance to the need to look after the elderly. So I hope that members will improve our proposal so that we can implement the scheme as soon as possible. Chairman, I understand that we're not against helping the senior citizens, but the question is whether or not this proposal is sustainable. We keep saying that we're challenging whether your proposal is sustainable. Other than requiring additional resources, you've said that definitely will affect other government expenditures. So what's the benefit of this proposal? We're saying that if this were a transitional arrangement, that we are prepared to consider that. And we go in the long term for universal retirement protection, that in future we can cut down on the need for these additional expenses. But you say you are focused, attaching importance to this area of public expenditure, and it's going to be recurrent, so there won't be new funds coming in. Mr. Leung Kok-hong, your first round. On the question of retrospectivity, Mr. Michael Tin has misunderstanding here. Mrs. Carrie Lam called me up and said that there's no way that the government will give in. We're going to pay out the allowance in March, or there's no way we can have it retrospective for 6 months. They believe that the payment will be made in March, and therefore it's too distant if it were retrospective to 6 months before. If you really want to help the elderly, listen to the FTU, listen to the Liberal Party. I think you should at least, make a concession so that you're able to backdate the payment of the allowance. How complicated is the computer system? You say you need to update it. You can tell people that if you don't answer my question, I'll give you the allowance, but I will. There will be vetting 1 year from 1 year later. How difficult it is for you to upgrade your system. You can have tenders for the job. You say that if you're late in approving your proposal, you will not be able to obtain the funding for this purpose. So how long can we delay this? So, Mr. Michael, I think you were wrong. That's why civil servants' back pay salary adjustment could be backdated. It would mean that they have a stronger bargaining power. Is that right?
仲有啊，
Also, we endorse the pay rise for the judges. Doesn't mean that the judicial officers have a stronger say. Mrs. Carrie Lam told me that if this is not endorsed today, you have to be accountable to the senior citizens. This administration today knows full well that there can be retrospectivity provided that you do something about the manpower and the computer. The senior citizens cannot get the Old Age Living Allowance. I think the responsibility lies squarely with you. Second, I've asked many times that the declaration system is a random checking system, and people will be in trouble. The senior citizens are concerned about this. Mr. Secretary, you're encouraging senior citizens to transfer the assets, the money paid to them by the kids will not be counted. If they declare that they're worried about being arrested, if they don't declare that, they will also be in trouble. I've seen a senior citizen who died of worries just because he lost $3,000. I must say this again here. I'm going to be mounting filibustering because we are unhappy with the policy. Whether it is $300,000 or $500,000 in terms of the asset limit, or whether there should be a waiver for the 70 euros. Now, you cannot come up with any timetable or roadmap. Is it the case that before 2017 you will be launching this $3,000 scheme, a scheme that was looked at by the actuarians? Are you going to do it? If you're going to do it, this $2,200 transitional period, how long will it be lasting for? It will not be lasting until 2030 or 40. There must be a transition. Well, I don't need an answer. Can't see why Leung's words be changed. Is he Mao Zedong? Is it Lin Biao? Lin Biao was assassinated. Well, you have to. I think you are concerned about your job. See why Leung was wrong. You're not trying to increase the amount. You're not worthy of being a civil servant. You have to shut up. No answer needed. So I can't quite see you when you remove this prop there. All right, Ms. N. Chung for the first time. Chairman, thank you. I'll try to hold off my remarks because I might get in the way of tonight's funding endorsement, but I can't help it. I try not to provoke people of fellow councillors on my right, because if I do so, they will start all over again, and we might have to be here overnight. I try not to provoke them. The only thing I like to say is this. This is supposed to be a good thing, and I feel that the administration should review how they do it. They seem to be very hardline in this regard. I met the Secretary Zhang, and I reflected to him that in relation to the fruit money, perhaps these should be available to those aged 65 without any means test. And we also hope that the fruit money of $1,090 should be increased a little bit so that they can go Yamcha a few more times. Secretary Zhang said that this could be considered, but the second time we met him, he said that there could be no more consideration of that. I think there might be some reasons for that. This OALA was proposed by the administration. It wasn't really the proposal of any one single member. It is a good thing for the government to propose the scheme. Now, this is a scheme meant for poverty alleviation. Now, with poverty alleviation, there has to be an element of means test. There are some fellow councillors who feel that this should not be for poverty alleviation, and this should be a transitional program on the way to a universal pension scheme. I think $2,200 is too little. And Chung, myself, will not accept this. The fellow councillors on my right wouldn't take $2,200 as an accepted amount. Perhaps I should cut a long story short. I just hope that members will not object for the sake of objection. Just because this secretary here doesn't mean that we should be resentful and sacrifice the well-being of the 400,000 senior citizens. The Oxfam, I'm sure this is familiar to members, Oxfam is an independent international human rights organization. Hardly ever do they side with the administration. The Oxfam is urging the administration and members to have the well-being of the senior citizens uppermost in their mind and endorse this OALA proposal. There is such an appeal there put out by the Oxfam. So likewise, I like to appeal to members from a different political persuasion to endorse this OALA proposal tonight, so that the senior citizens would get the money as soon as possible. Right, FSTB. Chairman, thank you. I'd just like to make a clarification. Members suggested the retrospective effect. Now, what the government is most concerned about is that when a funding proposal is presented to the Finance Committee, until this is endorsed, we should not incur any public funding. Now, if the FC hasn't endorsed the funding, we should not really incur any funding. This is the fiscal discipline that we have been observing. In some cases, the FC has endorsed the funding, and there will be a later commencement date, or a later commencement date, as long as this date doesn't predate the endorsement date. There will be a little bit of a retrospective effect, but until FC has endorsed the funding, we do not have any retrospective effect. Mr. James Toh. This is not for clarification. You have pushed the button for the third round. You can put questions there. I seek clarification. No, I won't allow any clarification. Now you've pushed the button for the third round, and you may wish to leave some time for the administration to clarify the point. Mr. James Toe. Chairman, I'd like to ask a technical question, if I may refer to enclosure 1 about the asset. If I may ask a question about the income that includes the income from work, but doesn't include certain things. Now, include, does it mean the only thing referred to here? Would there be anything that is included or not included that is not specified here? Director? Well, the income that we refer to, all these that are specified here are included. Mr. Toe, that's not my question. Include or not include, are we talking about the only things here? Director, income by income we include the couple of items here, and they are included for the calculation of income. For those that are not included, in the light of previous experience, we look at these two categories for those that are not included. Mr. Toe. Well, if this is endorsed, then there will be a lot of work for the government, I'm sure. As a lawyer by profession, I think I have to delve into this. For instance, if a self-occupied property has been subject to a reversal mortgage, and this is not pension, this is not subleasing, this is not really any kind of income, I don't think this mortgage should be included. Now, by a stricter definition, would this be included? Say, for instance, also, if I've got asset more than $186,000, will you let the administration answer the question first? Well, I'll ask the income first. If I've taken out a policy insurance for $1 million, and on the day before the application, I've taken out an annuity, not reverse mortgage, and I get a bit of income every month, would that resolve the asset problem? I'm not sure whether other members would accept these questions. I've got loads of questions of this nature. If I do not get this clear in my mind, I find it very difficult to support it. One is liable to prosecution if they fill out the form in the declaration. One is liable to being prosecuted. I think we have to be fair and square here. This is the paper that we're endorsing today. Director? Chairman, when we're dealing with income and asset, those included and not included, we would, in the application form, this is exactly what is couched, and we are working on the basis of this. When the senior citizens are making the application, they can work on the basis of what is specified here. Mr. Toe, now if one's income in the application form, if one has income structural products or whatever, Lehman Brothers products and so on, we know a lot about these. If they have something which is not included as one of the six, they will not be prosecuted. Is that right, Director? What the incomes, assets, like the money from the reverse mortgage or the cash value of insurance policy, as the case now, this will be working on the basis of this in future. Mr. Toe, what about joint accounts? Now, one may have assets in the bank in joint accounts. How would this be handled, Director? Well, for joint accounts, if the applicant doesn't make any particular declaration, we will, if this is a joint account for the two people, we will split it in half. But in the declaration, the applicant can specify the proportion of his asset in that joint account, because it's an honor system. We work on the basis of their application. Mr. To, well, I save my question till later. Mr. Wong Kwok Hing. Chairman, Mr. Lam Tai Fai criticized the Secretary and the administration for the wrong mishandling of this case. I subscribe to what he had to say. I think the Secretary has to do a bit of soul searching here. If I may put a question here. Now you have mounted all this publicity, and you said on television and radio that the money, the gift money from the kids will not be counted. Now these senior citizens are very frugal. They may not spend all the money, that gift money from their kids, and it would be difficult to distinguish the sources of the money. If they've saved up all this money, what will this be regarded? Director. Basically, the declaration includes incomes and assets. The gift money from the kids will not be counted as income. When we look at the assets in the declaration, we look at the passbooks, the stock holdings, the cash, and so on. But, Director, you don't have to go into so much detail. I've heard this many times. How do you distinguish the sources of money? How do you distinguish the source from the kids? Where do you draw the line if they save up the money, the gift money from their kids? If they save up all this money, how can you distinguish that? Director. Now, when we look at the assets, basically we look at the cash, the passbooks, and so on. Mr. Wong, thank you for your reply. Now, on radio and on TV, you said you never said this before, and you concealed this from the members of the public. In your publicity, you're not telling the whole truth, and you have misled the members of the public, not least the senior citizens. If I may follow up on the questions that I put before, you said you would be lenient and liberal. In 2015, March, there will be a review. My question then is, by liberal, by lenient, do you mean that before March 2015, you're not going to investigate the applicants who pay the money, and you let them take the money? You're not going to investigate them, is that right, Director? We introduced the scheme through the media. We said that the gift money from the kids will not be regarded as income. Well, my question is, before March 2015, now the senior citizens heard the word leniency. Before March 2015, they have been in receipt of the $2,200. Will they be investigated? Director, by leniency, I mean there is a grace period. By September 2014 or before that, during this grace period, if there is any change to the financial situation, it will not make any difference to their getting the allowance. After March 2015, we will conduct random checking. During the grace period, nobody will be affected. Mr. Wong, from what the Director said, I get the feeling that it doesn't matter how bad the system is. If this scheme is endorsed today, then it would be better for them to get the money than not get the money, because before March 2015, there will not be any random checking, and they don't care how you're going to change the system. At least until March 2015, I will be able to get the money without breaking the law. Is that correct, Director? Well, Chairman, I said that this is an honor system. Well, you said lenient. I think you're being fork-tongued, aren't you? I talked about lenient treatment during the grace period. If there are changes to the financial situation of the senior citizens, it will not make any difference. But in the declaration, one has to be honest with the financial situation.
How can you say the elderly is not being honest just because they have poor memory? I will suggest that the elderly get this allowance if the funding is approved today. Mr. Chan Kin-po. Well, I was approached by a secretary in October, and I made myself clear. Without the means test, I definitely would not support the proposal. Because eventually the elderly will suffer because this scheme would not be able to sustain, and we will end up like Greece. When we get old, when the economy is not good, the allowance will be cut half, and then we won't be able to survive, and the younger generation will also suffer. Just like Germany, the retirement age used to be 65, but now the pension payment would not be released until 67. And my friend is just in his 30s, and sooner or later the retirement age will be further pushed to 70. So every time I bumped into the secretary, he pulled a long face. He talked about the different requests. We understand that these 4 years will be difficult, but the secretary kept saying that we should all put our wisdom and come up with ways to alleviate poverty. And let's look at the time. If we want to talk about the details, in fact, the Social Welfare Department has rich experience in CSSA and other Social Security allowance schemes. And I'm not concerned about the relaxed approach because they can take out prosecution. So whether it's the secretary who is threatening members or political parties trying to gain political mileage, let's put all these aside and deal with the proposal as soon as possible. Mr. Wong Yuk-man, for the first round. Well, we need to resolve this dilemma, and that is if we do not have this proposal approved, it is said that the elderly will receive 1 month's allowance less. Now, Mr. Zhang, Secretary, you should not confuse us. Even if the proposal is not endorsed today, they will only get 1,100 less. Well, Mr. Chan Kin-po, he has shown keen support to the administration. Let's not talk about that, and he is from the insurance sector. And he benefits from this scheme. And let's not talk about this. I won't talk about you, but for some members who righteously talked about raising the limit and so on, but you're telling lies, and I haven't criticized you anyway. Well, you talked about the MPF and Mr. Chan Kin-po. Mr. Chan Kin-po. Mr. Wong Yuk-man, go on. Well, I haven't said anything wrong. The MPF, you look at the situation right now. You talk about Germany and Greece. Well, why don't you talk about Canada and Scandinavian countries? Well, you cannot say something like that. Why not? Well, MPF, it's been eaten up and it's been eroded. That's why we're proposing URP. Well, Mr. Chan Kin-po, if you continue to talk with each other, I'll have to ask you to leave. Well, I can't imagine Mr. Chan Kin-po being invited to leave. It's really puzzling. We have members and political parties suggesting raising the limit, yet they're ready to vote to support the proposal. Well, if you dare, you can abstain from voting. Well, what's wrong if the proposal is not approved? They can withdraw the proposal and the elderly will still be able to benefit from it. Well, I really admire Mrs. Regina Yip. Well, she is being frank. She is an EXCO member, so she says she's going to support the administration's proposal. We're going to vote against this proposal. We might even resort to filibustering. There is a price to pay. We might be criticized by some elderly, but the educated elderly would know that it was me who threw banana back then for their sake. And you wasted our time. You did not abide by a procedure. And on the 5th of July, Mrs. Carrie Lam herself said that the retrospective date could be the 1st of July. And yet, now you're saying it could not be backdated to the 1st of October. And in fact, during the AJLS panel this afternoon, it said that for judicial officers, they can get the back pay it can be backdated to the 1st of April. So we're safeguarding the interests of elderly. Everyone knows that. I asked you this question on the first day when I was sworn in. I asked about the number of elderly people waiting on the list for our CHEs and died whilst waiting. You said no figures could be provided. And then on the website, you talked about elderly people not working hard enough, and when they got old, they relied on the government's benefits. Well, didn't you say all these words? We are proposing $3,000 under the Universal Retirement Protection Scheme. How much is it different from $2,200? Well, you talked about administrative costs. You have 100 staff working for each and every scheme, so administrative costs will be incurred everywhere. Don't say that just because we vote against this proposal, we're not caring for elderly. Well, just propose just put forward all the proposals to LegCo, and we can deal with it in one go. What's the use of having LegCo? What's the use of having meetings? Introduce everything in your in the manifesto. Why don't you build more flats? You can do all the talking. And Matthew Cheung, you say that our government is being pragmatic. Well, that means the last times of government was not being pragmatic. All right, your time is up, Dr. Kokaki. Just now, I wanted the administration to clarify this point. Just now, PS said that nothing could be done before approval is given in the Finance Committee. But we see APIs on TVs and radios, stations every day. Since when has the government, has the administration paid respect to the LegCo? Even before the administration gets FC's approval, there have been APIs every day. When have you respected the discipline and procedure of LegCo? Why aren't the APIs aired after approval has been given by the Finance Committee? You have hijacked everything. Next point. I'm really saddened to hear this, Secretary. Just now I asked you about CPU's studies. Well, you deceived us. You said that the studies have been uploaded on the website. I asked my assistants to check the website. No studies have ever been uploaded on the website. So you're lying, and this administration is resorting to every means to cheat us. Just now, Mr. Alan Leung also said this. Mrs. Carrie Lam also said this to us. Well, she said that if approval is not given today, we would be held accountable to the elderly. So how can we support you? You should not do this. We talk about improving the relationship between the executive and legislature. Well, this is impossible. It is impossible to cooperate with you because from the first day on, have you ever budged on any of your proposals? None at all. Effective date, income and assets limit, and the allowance amount, no negotiation at all. So what did you mean by consultation and discussion? And last night at the panel meeting, members had no chance to discuss, and today this proposal is submitted, and we're asked to approve the proposal, or we will have to bear the brunt. The administration should not shift the burden or the responsibilities onto electoral members. It's very unfair. Now, a practical question, Annex A. No double benefit, it said. It says that Dr. Kwok, well, you asked 2 questions just now. Would you like them to answer first? Chairman, it's just a very short question. If you ask another question, they have time to answer you. In short, many disability allowance recipients spend the allowance on medical expenses. For example, the stoma and also the bags, and if they're just given the $2,200, you're actually taking away this money. P.S., would you like to reply to his question first? That was her question for you. Well, I said that in government's funding proposals, usually we would not use the public money before we get approval from SC. APIs is not part of the expenditure in this proposal. Well, that means before you get the FC's approval, you have the APIs, and you're still respecting the electoral secretary. Well, a report has been released. It sets out the progress of the 5 studies. I can give you this report tomorrow. Well, I need to be concise. No double benefit is the established practice. You cannot get 2 allowances at once. For the normal DAA, 1,395, if they are converted to the new scheme, they will get a higher amount. So for the normal DA, they won't be affected. Only that they cannot be getting both. That means if they get a higher amount, they won't be able to get the lower amount. Dr. M. Tai Fai. Chairman, as I said during my first round, a caring government should effectively care for the elderly. I need to make myself clear. I agree with this OALA. I think this is a good policy. However, it should be implemented by officials with wisdom. Well, Chairman, I subscribe to the views of other members. We all want our elderly people to get more financial support and care from the government. And that's why I spoke up and I gave you some friendly advice. I was being friendly, the Secretary. I wanted the government to perfect the policy. Well, Secretary, you should not feel upset because I am at an even more difficult position right now. Secretary, you said that we should take care of the urgent needs of the elderly, and I also feel the same. I also want this proposal to be passed as soon as possible with improvements to the proposal. Now, let's talk about the details. You said that for elderly people aged 65 or above, if the means test is scrapped, the expenditure would jump from $6.2 billion to $10 billion. It would be an increase of $3.7 billion. So, Secretary, does it mean that according to your estimation, all the elderly people will apply for the allowance? Because at least I know you won't apply for it, nor will Mr. Jasper Zhang. I mean, if there is no means test, have you misled the public? Because this is not the true picture. Secondly, I'd like to follow up on Mr. Wong Kwok Hing's question. Your answer is really puzzling. Well, you want to have a simplified application procedure. That's understandable. For example, filling in application forms, etc. On the other hand, you said that a relaxed approach would be adopted for the means test. Now, what do you mean by that? Does it mean that only 2 will be taken out from 100 during the screening process? So, please explain to us. Even if you delegate this duty to your subordinates, you should explain to us what you mean by a relaxed or liberal approach. Because if we have different standards or interpretations on this, this may cause our elderly to get into trouble. I'm sorry, I'm talking about elderly people aged 70 or above. Now, if there is no means test, definitely the number of applications will surge, and therefore our calculation should be based on all eligible applicants. I cannot speak on behalf of anyone, but if there is no means test, we should plan ahead. But this is not the reality. Dr. Lam, please allow her secretary to speak. Now, about this relaxed screening process. Now, what we're talking about is a limit of $186,000 with an income limit of $6,660. At present, they're only getting $1,090, and after this scheme is implemented, they will get $2,200. We have not tightened the criteria. And during the election, there were views expressed. They said that the asset limit should be cut half. It should be 93,000 instead, because you're talking about doubling the amount of the allowance. So therefore, our criteria have actually relaxed, because over 80% of the elderly will benefit from the scheme. Mr. Wong Yuk Man, second round. Just now, Dr. M. Taifai asked a question. You didn't answer. Question number 1, for those aged 70, at present, they are not subject to the means test. But now, for an extra $1,100, they need to go through the means test. And some elderly, aged 70 above, will apply for this and will need to go through this declaration. So the question for you is, will you apply for OALA? This is an important question. You should answer him. If you answered him, he might say that, well, that means there might not be so many applicants. So let me ask you again. Well, you earn $280,000 a month, and you also receive pensions from your previous post. So are you going to apply for OALA, and then will you subject yourself to the means test and say that your asset limit does not exceed $186,000? I'm asking you on behalf of Lam Tai-Fai. Now, just like last time, I asked how much you earn a month, and you said everybody knows, and I am asking you to answer. Now, you have 1,100,000 more. You are eligible, and there is no need to apply. Then, Matthew Zhang, will you apply? We're talking about elderly people aged 70 or above, and the situation is that we don't have means test. This is the focus of Dr. Lam's question. if you don't have means test, of course there will be incentive for more to apply. Now, so it's just talk shop. Doubling the fruit money amount and the special OA allowance, and now you're talking about alleviation of poverty. You do all the talking. I asked the question, you did not answer. Our position is very clear. For those aged 70 or above, according to this OAA mechanism, they should not be subject to the means test. And then you for all the theories and all the figures, we have prepared our documents as well. You did not read it. We even project the amount up to 2038. And you asked for our views. You did not pay heed to our views. So what's the use? I say that the next generation will be able to afford it. You don't trust us. You just believe in your own set of figures. All right, Secretary, we're running out of time. It's 10:40. Secretary, you should be prepared. Our chairman will only extend the meeting by 15 minutes. Today is the 30th. Tomorrow is the 31st. Well, you won't be able to get the approval in October. So go back, think about it. Can you backdate this scheme to the 1st of October? Is it possible? If you are willing to do that, you're being pragmatic. Secondly, you should scrap the means test, or you should accede to DAB's request and raise the limit to 300,000. Are you going to vote against it or not? Tregan, you're very popular recently. They're not acceding to your request, and yet you're still voting for the proposal. It's really funny. Well, if you pay heed to my request, I will definitely vote for you. Let's try this.
I'll give you my immediate support. You're not doing me a favor. You're not doing them a favor, but they still support your proposal. That's why you are, on safe ground. That's why you're so arrogant. You think that we are parent. Last time regarding the transport allowance, you're also playing a similar trick. We listened to you on the radio. You repeat the same script. People still now remember Stephen Lamb, but now you seem to be, you and Mr. Fetzo and Paul Chen. All of you are human tape recorders. You don't heed, public sentiment. That's why we have to reprimand you strongly. I can give you my promise that definitely your proposal will not be approved today. Chen Yunhan, second round. Chairman, originally I intended to ask a number of questions. I'd like to focus my question on one point, and I want the Secretary to give me a detailed answer. I have met with some senior citizens today. They're worried that the proposal will not be approved tonight. In the light of the present situation, some people want to approve the proposal approved as soon as possible. Some told me that they are in very serious financial difficulty, but they have some savings they've set aside in preparation for the burial. They're in such a poor financial situation, they should have applied for CSSA, but they say they couldn't because if they want to do that, they will need to ask the children to declare that they are unwilling to support them. So they asked me, they're actually older than me, they said, what should we do? This time you've set the ceiling at $86,000. These people are fully qualified to apply for CSSA, but they are in this situation. I think previously we've criticized the government for the policy of forcing the senior citizens to depend on the living by scavenging for paper cardboards. They asked me what they should do. How are we going to help these senior citizens? The money that they save away is in preparation for the burial rights, which they can't use. Once they apply for CSSA, given that the children will have to sign a document to declare that they are, forsaking the parents. If they do not want to do that, they have to rely on scavenging for card boxes to make a living. Mr. Secretary, you've now come up with a new term, OALA. So I'd like to ask how you're going to deal with cases like that. How are you going to help these poor elderly persons? Secretary, if the senior citizen has assets which does not exceed $186,000, as I said, by the time we start implementing the scheme, it would exceed $190,000. And if the income is less than $6,600, they're certainly welcome to apply. Secretary, I said that these people have money saved, put aside, which my guess is that should exceed $186,000, but not by a very large margin. Then in that case, how can we help them? In that case, we really can't help. However we draw the line, it's not an issue. How can the Old Age Living Allowance help these old people whose assets exceeded $168,000? If they've exceeded the limit, if they're above the age of 70, their OAA eligibility will not be affected. Are they collecting OAA now? They're now relying on OAA for subsistence. For an old person who only has $1,090 per month, can they survive on that? You have to resolve this question. Answer this question. One member earlier said it very well, but from the age of 59 to 70, you have this system. The present system is that after 70, you don't declare your assets. In future, you are imposing the declaration system under the OALA. Have you resolved all the problems which are confronting the senior citizens? Now, Secretary, we have to identify those elderly persons in need. To do that, we must draw a line. Wherever we draw the line, some elderly persons will be affected. We have now drawn the line at Mr. Leung Kwok Hong. Please respect the proceedings of this council. Secretary, it's not the first day that you are now, acting as a secretary. I think we are well aware of our position. You've not reflected the situation to the CE. Why didn't you say this to the CE and instead want to get this approved in haste? I've said many times that we don't want to get this approved in haste. Chairman, I'd like to say that the government's API are misleading the elderly. Okay, I'll finish what I want to say. I don't want to hear things which have been repeated 3 times already. I think your time is up already. I think you're creating a lot of confusion within our society. Dr. Leung Kalau, I'd like to refer to para 14B of the paper. Don't call me the weird doctor. In 14B, you say that your estimate is that 150,000 people who are now collecting the higher OAA but will be deemed to be eligible for the OALA. Those people who previously had not collected the normal OAA, these people will benefit. Previously, you've said you don't anticipate there will be drastic changes regarding the assets of these senior citizens. How do you arrive at the figure of 150,000? These people who previously did not apply for the normal OAA, why is it that? I think they are now collecting the high OAA because they've become older, but still they cannot satisfy the asset criteria. Why do you propose to give the OALA to these people? Because talking a difference of $2 billion here for the 400,000 senior citizens collecting higher OAA. For those who previously have applied for the normal OAA, according to our system, our record, there are 215,000 So about half the senior citizens had previously applied and collected the normal OAA and had made asset declarations. Other than these people who are eligible, for the other half, our estimate is that amongst them, about 60% will be eligible. The main consideration here is that this group of elderly persons, as they become older, their incomes and assets will drop and the assets will shrink in value. So we guess that there will be about 60%. And for those over the age of 70, it's about 30. For those between 65 and 69 who have already applied for the normal OAA, and also those over the age of 60, they're about 50%. Based on this projection, for those people over the collecting the high OAA, that is those over the age of 70, about 80% of them will apply for the OALA. How did you arrive at the 60% and the 80%? For the higher OAA, half of the recipients, when they were at the age of 65 and 69, no, I'm not asking this. My question is for those who are between 65 and 69 who are not eligible to the OAA, most of their assets and income would have exceeded the limit. And that's why, but after 70, they don't need to go through the means test, they're eligible. For 150,000 of these people, they should not be eligible to what you are now proposing, that is the 2,200. So the amount involved here is 2 billion. You say that of the 6.2 billion, 2 billion will be collected by these people. Have you overestimated the expenditure by 2 billion? I said for those people who did not receive the normal OAA when they were between 65 and 69, we understand that in the past, these senior citizens might have been relying on their incomes or savings, and that's why most of them do not have a lot of assets, but as they get older, their assets will shrink in value. So among these elderly, we estimate that about 60% will be eligible. And this estimate, our final estimate is that among those senior citizens who are at the age of 70, half of them have applied for the higher OAA. For those between 65 and 69, 30% have applied. So I think this is a reasonable estimate. Well, these senior citizens have not applied for OAA before, so we are only making a guesstimate. But as I explained, this is a reasonable guesstimate. For those between 65 and 69, for those who have applied for the normal OAA, I've not taken into consideration those who might apply after the OAA allowance has been doubled. The overall projection, we believe, is a reasonable projection. Dr. Lau, you have no further questions. Next round for James Toh. Chairman, I'd like to follow up on a series of technical questions. In the safe deposit box, which is jointly owned, for the gold chains and gold coins, is it deemed to be the case that either of the persons leasing the safe deposit box will have 50% of the value? It would depend the percentage that they have declared. Otherwise, we will work on the basis of 50% split. So you assume that the gold coins and the gold bracelets, the value will be deemed to be divided, 50-50 between the joint holders of the safe deposit box. I heard someone mention objects with commemorative value which will not be counted. And someone mentioned, paintings by master painters, and they're not under the category of commemorative value. So does it mean that they don't fall under those 6 categories of gold coins, bank deposits, and so on and so on? Let's say in 1963, on in October, let's say he has a deposit of a certain amount, which is equivalent to the year, month, and date of the birth. So those will not have any commemorative value. Well, cash is cash. You declare how much cash you have, how much deposit you have in the bank account. And if they have commemorative objects, if they have a bracelet, for example, which they have inherited from their parents or other family members, or they were gifts from other family members. Our principle is that we wouldn't require a simple declaration. We tried our best to draw a line to look after the senior citizens at the rank and file level, and for these we will deal with leniently. Chairman, for commemorative objects, if they are not gold bracelets, they are, let's say they are jade bracelets, then they will not fall under those 6 categories. I think you've clarified this point already. For objects with commemorative value, do they apply to gold bars and gold coins, or do they only apply to the other 5 objects? They say, I have a license plate, I love you. Let's say a lady has been courted by a billionaire when she was young, and she has this license plate number. I think we have to go back to the basics, which is that the system for income and asset declaration will suit the needs of the senior citizens at the grassroots level. The system, the normal OAA was implemented since 1988, and all those objects I refer to would cope with all the scenarios that you mentioned. We are now asked to approve the new funding. Now, under the old CSSA, when that was implemented, I was not in LegCo. Since I have to vote on this proposal, I have to clarify everything. Otherwise, should there be litigation, who is going to defend these people? And I will not elaborate further on this point, but you have to clarify these, answer these questions. Otherwise, you need to give us a supplementary paper. You mentioned that commemorative objects will not be counted. Would it only be restricted to gold coins? What about bank deposit for commemorative value? Let's say they have a $1,000 notes, all bearing the digit 8. In commemoration of some, let's say Susie Wong, for example, says she owns a bank note which bears a serial number that tallies with her birthday value. If you treat it as cash in hand, it's only worth a few hundred. If she sold it, she said that 30 years ago she bought it for $8,000. So I quote this example to ask how you're going to judge. James Toh, I think your time is up. Members, I don't think we'll be able to finish our deliberation on the OALA proposal. According to our next meeting is scheduled for the 16th of November. According to the procedure of this committee, any paper which has been put onto the agenda but have not been able to be deliberated at the meeting concerned, then they will be followed up on at the following meeting. So I'd like to propose convening a special meeting to discuss this issue. I will only consider it when I receive a request from the administration. Members, we only have 1 minute before, it's 1 minute before 11. We have still 3 other members for the second round, and there are other members who are asking for a third round. So these will be recorded, and they will be allowed to continue to speak in this sequence at our next meeting. So thank you very much. Mr. Yip Kok Him. I hadn't heard you clearly. When is our meeting? according to the arrangement between the administration and this council, the next meeting is scheduled for the 16th of November, unless the government has other requests. Otherwise, according to our rules of procedure and our prior arrangement, this item will be put on the agenda for the meeting for November 16th. So we will continue our deliberation on the same agenda item. Thank you very much.